coding with Emacs, and the author is Albert Sigurdsson. We're going to see a video he prepared for us, and then hopefully he's going to be connected through Skype at the end, right? So I'm starting the video here. Got it?
Hello, fellow citizens. Greetings from Berlin, Germany. I'm Hlöðver, in case you don't know me, more known perhaps for being active in the live coding community, being one of the few that uses CSON for live coding. But that's not what I'm going to talk about in this talk.
Okay, let's wait. Sorry. Change here. All right, sorry. Once again.
Hello, fellow citizens. Greetings from Berlin, Germany. I'm Hlöðver, in case you don't know me, more known perhaps for being active in the live coding community, being one of the few that uses CSON for live coding. But that's not what I'm going to talk about in this talk. But rather I'll talk about a Emacs package that I made in the last months. But I will go and it may have a little twist to live coding, even though that's not the main reason, or any reason actually why I made this package. So too long to read. Story of this plugin is really, this is a way to edit CSON files in Emacs. This is not the first Emacs package that is specifically designed to edit CSON files. Two other packages have been made before I made my CSON mode. Those being one from John Fitch. I don't know if it has a name, but it's really LDoc files with some bindings to separate the CSON document into score and orchestra sections. And this idea, I believe, was taken much further by the currently biggest CSON package for Emacs called the CSON X, made by Stefan Roland, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. My package is mostly just the same as these previously mentioned packages. I'm not trying to introduce something fancy. Basically, my package is doing very simple things. It's basically providing syntax highlighting for different CSON symbols. It provides some documentation. So as you write maybe an opcode or an operator, you can see which parameter you're working on, and also I'll provide with this package as well autocomplete and indentation. This is very basic things that you will expect from any IDE or integrated development environment. So I can say some fancy words. But what my package provides as well is really the idea or the concept of a rack. What I mean by rack, it's really a Lisp lingo, but what I mean by rack is really a command line or like a prompt, where you can type in CSON commands, you can type in a score line or an instrument expression, and it will be evaluated into a running CSON instance. A similar concept can be found in, for example, the the Python prompt, which is included in CSON Qt, and as well, I believe that Stephen Yee made a wrap for Vim users. So Vim users programming CSON files can also have a similar experience as I will provide in my major mode. So the story behind this major mode really begins with another package I made last Christmas, December 2016. It was when Emacs announced a new feature in Emacs 25 called dynamic modules. Maybe open that one here. And this is still, I will point out, experimental. It is not included in the installation by default, which is kind of annoying. I'm still hoping they, I think they will include it in future version as a default installed possibility. But basically, dynamic modules to Emacs, dynamic modules are kind of a foreign function interface, meaning that you can load library files. For Linux, it would be SO files or Microsoft DLL files. And you can, yes, load programs and load functions from the programs into the Emacs environment. So I experimented with that and created this CSON API Emacs list, which, if you compile it, it will produce another SO file, which then in return Emacs can load, and you can interact with CSON directly through Emacs. As I will show you here, I've also made some examples of this. So this function here, module load, will in fact load the module Emacs CSON.so, and I'll point out that to compile this module, you will need to have CSON installed. It will need to find CSON.h header files, and it will compile its function directed at the CSON API, the C programming language API of all the different CSON APIs out there. So this is basically a very thin wrapper, making it possible to interact with CSON through Emacs. So if I play this example here, which is translated from Stephen Yee's example of the CSON API, I will first load the module, evaluate this expression within Emacs, and I'll point out this is also eLisp, which is a native Emacs Lisp programming language. And so I will initialize the instance. Here's the orchestra I will compile. Here's the score, and here I will basically call these functions. Create CSON instance, set the option, compile the orchestra, read the score, start it, perform it, stop it. So you should hear annoying beep. Beep go. And yes, so I mentioned this because I was talking about how I started. Then I, of course, had the idea, wouldn't it be amazing to have same kind of experience with CSON as I already have with Lisp when I, for example, program a closure, I can evaluate expressions. And another reason I will add as well, CSON X is not compatible with Emacs 25 or later, and it has taken a bit of time to update CSON X. So this is another reason why I wasn't using any of the older CSON packages in the first place. So I really felt encouraged to do so myself. Let's open. No, wait. So let me do one thing before I show you a CSON file with my CSON package. Let me point out that you can install my CSON mode now through Melpa. So just to get these concepts right, Melpa and Elpa are the two main package managers for Emacs. So if you want to download or add a plugin to your Emacs, Melpa or Elpa would be like the repositories that will provide the most amount of community open source add-ons for Emacs. And since a few months, my package has been available on these repositories. So installing my package should be as easy as opening Emacs package manager, which you would do through list packages. I press enter. Here we have many packages. If I search for CSON, here we will have CSON. And okay, I notice now for the first time I'm also on Melpa stable, which is good news. But anyway, I'm also on Melpa. The difference between the two being that the stable branch should be stable, quote unquote. So it doesn't show as I've installed it. I don't have it installed on my computer through the package manager. But if you would want to install it, you just press enter, and you can, from the other buffer here, press enter to install. But in my case, I'm not going to do it. But if you would want to install it, it will do so. And I will also add, when you install it from the package manager, it will also try to compile the shared library file. And you will see that when you try to start the CSON wrap, that the package will notify you that it didn't find the CSON or the emacs CSON.so file. It offers to compile it for you. I will add this very experimental feature, and if you have a problem with it, please let me know. But my hope is that you don't have to take any extra steps to install the shared library file. Okay, so let's just open CSON file. I have some sandbox. Ready? ICSC, okay. Now let's do it. Let me open just ICSC2.csv. Okay, here is a new file, CSON document. As you can see, because I already installed it, that CSON node is here marked as major node with many minor nodes, but there's no text obviously. What I can do, for example, which is included in the package, is that I can do auto insert, and I will get here just a skeleton, so I can really start just to program some CSON. So let's make an instrument, instrument 1, and then let me just make an instrument. This one here, just to move it. Okay, so as you see, basic things. We have the syntax highlighting. If I would write here global audio variable, it will have this color, or global FFI signal, it will look like this. Right, yeah, etc., etc. Another big feature here is the completion. So as you can see here down in the left corner, you can see the green color, basically indicating that I am on this parameter, that I am on the second parameter, that I'm here on the first parameter. This is nothing special. You can find this in CSON as well, but this becomes especially handy when you write something like particle. Yeah, okay. As you can see as well, here we have different autocomplete suggestions: partial, particle, particle cut, particle sync. And if you look in the left down corner, you can see that the mini buffer, is called the mini buffer in Emacs, is giving the user some helpful information. So this is a bit of documentation for the function. So you can see partial spectral analysis, granular synthesizer with pair grain control, and all this information is comes from the crude parsing that I do on the CSON manual. So there's some chance that some of these documentation are gonna be empty or with some strange new lines, but let's hope this is not the case. My particle, and then we have many parameters. Put something, and if I'm not mistaken, you can also continue. Yeah, next line as well. So it should recognize the line break character. I don't know what you call the backslash in computer science. Anyway, as well, you can see here we have indentation, and I will add that I'm addicted to a plugin which is called aggressive indent. So I don't really need to press the tab key to indent, but let me show you what I mean. So let's make, if we were to make another level of nesting, so we could write if blah equals blah, then blah blah blah, and if. So you can see automatically the nesting, which is on default set to 2 spaces, becomes automatically nested. And this also goes for goto statements. They should also, to some degree, obey the same law and also indent 2 spaces when you have a new goto case. What's more here? Yes, okay. So this code I don't have. If we go to the support section, and write for this specific instrument, instrument 1. Start at 0, 3 seconds. With pitch class, so it means that's something like that. Let's always do it. Yes, as you can see here, the colors. This is another thing I'm quite proud of, but this can be also taken away. Basically, what this color show is that just the parameter number is given a specific color until they repeat at some point. So when you have many instruments with many parameters, it will be visually quite easy to differentiate and see, oh, I'm at parameter 7 or parameter 11. So you can have less thinking when you're composing the score. But so far, I'm not showing the rep. I'm just writing offline CSON code. And so I point out that to use my major mode, you don't really have to use this rep feature. You can actually install it and not install the rep and have a, I would say, a great experience. Where you can basically do something like Ctrl+C, Ctrl+P. It will take the document that you're in and just play to the output as you would type CSON minus ODAC file. So let's try that for this buffer here, this file that we are looking at. So all we have to do is do Ctrl+C, Ctrl+P, and I'll add, this is all the key bindings are documented in the manual. So let's see what happens. Yes, we got here 1 beep, and the compilation buffer, which you can just close by pressing Q and go back in the CSON buffer. But now let's open the rack and make things more interactive. There's a key binding for it. You can do it 2 ways. You can do meta X, open the Emacs mini book. I don't know what to call it. Meta X is just the name that's used in Emacs. And you can write CSON rep start and press enter. Or you can do Ctrl+C, Ctrl+Z, which I'll do. I will press the key button, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+Z. And as you can see on the right side, we have the CSON rep open. Some information about this instance. So depending on the configuration you have, let's say you have a .CSON6rc file in the home directory, it should read from that, and this CSON instance should be listening to that. So if you want to connect to Jack or also or Hall, whatever, you may want to configure it in your, it says here, .CSON6.rc. And we have here a font. I know this, okay, I know the picture of this in the font. But here we have a font, and here we can actually just type any CSON command. But we have not yet evaluated this, so I'll add to evaluate code snippet in CSON is basically the same thing you would do when you're evaluating ELISP expressions. You either do Ctrl+C, Ctrl+C, no, it's not fine, sorry, you do Ctrl meta X or Ctrl alt X. As you see, this instrument was evaluated without any errors, but let's make an error and see what happens. Of course, this does not exist. As you can see, the instrument would blink red color, and you can also see here in the rack that the CSON experienced an error, and the token, I don't know, it's complaining about a pulse, since you complain about it. Okay, it's complaining about alt SD. So let's fix it again, and again we have this instrument successfully evaluated. So what we can do here is that we can type here instrument expression, so score expression. Let's do instrument 1, 0, 3, and 8. This class is bad. You can also go back history. Go have a fun time and play the instrument that you have, that the instance already knows about it. You have to actually provide it. We can do that as well. We can also just give it the instrument expression. Did that work? Okay, that's broken at the moment, but I will fix that very soon. But anyway, but most of the time you're going to want to put in this point here score statements to accompany either making composition, live code, or just sound design. And a very neat feature here is that I can make, let's do some more score statements. 1, 7, 3, 7, 7. Plus, and there's one. So one thing I can evaluate, so if I had a cursor within a block of score statements separated by new lines, I can just do Control X. It will evaluate the whole block of score statements. So for example, if there was a new line here in between, it will only play this one. And if we go here, it will play this 3. Let's make it this one. Okay, this is better. So, as I've evaluated this score block, this is now saved in a variable which is called the last evaluated expression. And this can potentially make the sound designing a much faster process. So all I have to do is that I can run the key binding Control C, Control L, which is mnemonic for last. So if I do Control C, Control L, it will display the last expression. What I can do with that is that I can basically just be here in the instrument, change some parameters, and now I do Control C, Control L. And yeah, this is really done. And I can just try it. Oh, does this sound better? Did this make any difference? There's no change here. It's the iterations problem. Yes, different questions. I will. No extra thoughts as well. Yeah, etc., etc. And so my main idea here is really that the speed between thinking about something and hearing it as you are composing is really my goal here with this interactive record. Another feature I want to maybe before I finish here show out is tables. So I'm just to write table. Let me find some table. No, not this one. Something from here. No, it's not that here. Okay, right here. From table 0, 1, 0, 10. No, is this right? No, okay, 0, 24. Okay, so now we have a sense table. Nothing special about that. But with a key binding Control C, just Control C, Control P. No, Control C, Control T. What is the game? Let me look. Much. This is some mode. Yeah, plot. So F is right. Control C, Control F. Yes. So basically, I'm just here using GNU plot, sending the data for each point into GNU plot, and so you can also look at the tables. I believe this was also a feature of System of X, and I really liked it, so I just also implemented it here. So if you change add some more parameters evaluated, Control C, Control F, you can also quickly see the kind of table that you were designing at any given point in time. Let me just look through if I'm forgetting something. I believe I kind of covered the basics of everything. Yes, one thing I will mention in the end is indentation within the score. I don't know how many times you had a score that looks maybe like this. Let's say, I'm just making some bullshit here. Let's say you have a score with equally many parameters, and you're also trying to, let's say, well, you want to make sure that the same parameters match up, and you will try to do something like this. Like, oh no, this one moves, I have to take this one back. It all becomes messy, you introduce a new parameter, and it all gets messy. I actually spent a lot of time making this function. I don't know what to call this function, but it's really just to match the matching blocks in the score parameter. So if I run the keypad in Ctrl+C, Ctrl+S, which is the mnemonic for score, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+S, as you can see, immediately it looked through the whole score block. It looked from like the beginning of the score block to the end and counted all the fields, found out the largest amount of gap needed, and gave it to all the parameters. So very quickly you can just make your score look a bit prettier without any header. And this, for example, for myself, eliminates the need to use Excel. The main reason I used Excel spreadsheet in the past was because I hated this space in between the score fields, the parameters in the score, and made it look much nicer. And also, if you're really nerd, you might into Control X, Control Space, or what is it? Control X Space. You can basically just do an Excel in actually. For me, I don't need Excel anymore here. I'm probably forgetting something, but I'm gonna leave it here. Yes, another thing, yes, by the way, if you have operators, you can also get the completions within the function syntax. But I believe I'll probably have passed 20 minutes, so I'm gonna stop here. So if you have questions for me about my season package, I'm happy to answer questions. So until then, yes, have a nice time in Paraguay, and see you during Q&A. Bye-bye.
He apologized. He apologized.
Okay, so I think here we have Clover. Are you there? All right.
Is that the sound?
Yes. Hello?
It's getting better, Susan.
It's easier. It's directly recorded from CSON on the Apple Watch.
It's coming. Okay. Hello? Are you there? Hello? I don't know. See that God? You call me from another account, then you right. See, but it says you call me from other account, then you right. It says, no, what's that? No. Ah, because you are me. And he's calling you. No? Like Google, it's not easy. Okay, I think we should go on.
Perhaps
And-
after the. He's coming?
Hello.
Sounds much
Cover?
better now.
Yes. No.
That was him calling you, right?
Yeah,
That's
I don't know. That's okay. So maybe after the next presentation we can have a try. So I invite now Visually and Estudio. They are going to talk about similar topic, but using Beam. Their talk is called Beam Tools for Coding and Live Coding in System. You go ahead.
Well, we are here because I'm the chair of this conference. I am a Beam user, and of course, I couldn't admit that we were having a presentation about Emacs and not one about Beam. And since presenting my plugin was not enough to justify a presentation, I invited Steven. ¿Puedes bajar el audio? Ahí está. So we are going to share our presentation. We'll talk about our respective plugins for coding in CSON, coding and live coding in CSON. So this talk will present two tools for coding and live coding in CSON, my own CSON Beam and Steven's CSON Repo. CSON Beam is a plugin that provides a set of tools for editing CSON files in Beam. And if I had to justify, or if you ask what is the most valuable asset of CSON Beam, why should I use CSON Beam? So the most valuable part of CSON Beam is Beam itself. So it's not the fact that my plugin provides anything particular, but the fact is that allows you to use Beam, which is, as everyone knows, the most powerful text editor existing.
The only one.
Yes. What is Beam? Beam is, the name is BI Improve, B Improve. It's a very powerful, jokes aside, it's a very extremely powerful text editor. It's very popular among programmers. And, well, it's also, of course, free software and closed platform. And well, on the downside, it has a bit of a steep learning curve. Unlike other editors where you just open a window and begin to type, in Vim you have to learn at least the basics to be able to use it. The MIT license, and it's compatible with Pathogen, which is a plugin installer for Vim. That means it's very easy to install this plugin using not only Pathogen but other plugin managers bundled in plan. Here we have the page at GitHub with a README and installation documentation, basic documentation for the use of the plugin, and I think it's pretty well documented. Well, which are the features provided by CSUN-Vim? Very basic ones, actually. First of all, the first feature is, of course, syntax recognition and highlighting. It recognizes most syntactic elements of the language. Opcode names, variables, commands. It has much room for improvement, but as it is pretty useful. Then we have folding, which is very handy to navigate through big orchestras, because it can fold different levels of the code, can fold instruments for the whole orchestra or the whole score, comments, and things like that. It provides some macros, so you don't need to leave the editor, go to a terminal, compile, and return, so you can compile and listen to the results without leaving Vim. It has different macros for compiling with different options. And some more recent additions is opcode auto-completion. So if you type, as we saw in Google's plugin or node, you type the first letters and you can ask for the plugin to provide all the possible completions, all the opcodes that begin with those letters. And this is also handy. It uses the Vim online help, so it can provide, it opens the Vim online help for the opcode under the cursor. Or it can open the HTML manual on a web browser, your system-defined web browser. It can either be a local copy of the manual if you have it, or if you don't have a local copy of the manual, it tries to go to the web page for the manual if you have an internet connection, of course. And it can also open the example SD, the CSD of the opcode provided by the manual. And it also has a template, so if you create a new document, it begins not with an open, with an empty file, but with a template. And that's pretty much all. So let's see. Let's suppose we begin with we open Vim, an empty file. So if I create a new file with extension CSD, it creates a template. By default, all the big sections are folded, but it's easy to open all the folders or you can close to the folders, or you can open each folder or close it. So let's say this is part of the template. The template is just a CSV file somewhere that you can adapt to your taste. And okay, let's say we want to begin coding, and I write A1, and I write pause. I don't remember, remember the name of the something. The face of Joachim's face come to my mind, but I cannot remember the name of the code. So here I have the possibility to only only two possible completions. So here I type whatever, it doesn't matter. But now I don't remember the syntax, so I can use Vim's own online help. And here I have the text version of the manual help and of the manual page for this code. I can check the syntax or whatever. I could, of course, copy and paste. Right? But you may think that this online help is very basic, and it really is. So if I have again complete, I can open the manual page on a web browser. Right? Here I have the complete manual page. Or I can also open in a new tab. I open the example CSV for that code. Given that there is an example orchestra with the name of the code, right? Which in this case, it's the case now. Well, let's listen to that. Okay, so let's assume I want to listen to the example orchestra, so I don't need to leave Vim. I can compile and return to Vim without no need to go to a terminal or to use a graphical user interface and navigate through menus and look for that. One thing about this, the philosophy behind Vim is that you don't leave the keyboard. Your hands don't leave the keyboard. You don't use the mouse. You don't use the menus and nothing. Just everything should be under your fingers. It's a real power text editor. Another brilliant feature of my plugin that I forgot to mention. I mentioned it. So, well, as I said, the plugin is simple, it's nothing fancy, but the real value of the plugin is that you can use Vim. It would be, of course, beyond the scope of this very short presentation to show you why Vim is so powerful, what makes it different from other text editors, and why once you learn the basics of Vim, it's very difficult, not only to use a different editor, it's difficult to see anyone else using a different editor. And deleting things with the delete key, you know, and moving around the text with the arrows, you know, and pressing backspace, and things like that. It's terrible. But that was enough for me, and the really interesting part is to see students playing. Dice, voy a cambiar el audio.
So, I'm a Vim user, and I like Lucy's plugin very much. The plugin I created, Vim-REPL, is very simple. Right now, it pretty much only has one feature, which is to take a selected code, send it to CSound, a running CSound instance, and have CSound evaluated live. So, let's say I create a file called ICSC2017.csv. Oh, I call it 2012. Let's pretend it's back in time. And let's say, we use kstamp1. And we're using the kind of the default template. Just do 2012. Default template CSON CSV file. Let me change the color scheme. Yeah. Hopefully a little easier to see on the screen. Now, what I'll do is start CSON with this CSV file using the port equals flag. This starts CSound running with UDP server, listening on port 10,000 for any orchestra code. Now you can see at the very end, right here it said UDP server starting on port 10,000. I don't know how loud this will be, so let me turn it down here for the moment. And right now, when I started CSound, it evaluated this. And because there's no score, CSound is running in a kind of always-on mode. Now, let me evaluate this. So every time I select text and I use a keyboard shortcut, in this case the leader key, or my system is defined as comma EO for evaluate orchestra, it'll send that code over to CSound. You can see the other terminal. And now this allows me to change and update the code. And then we say, that doesn't sound good. So maybe we use ladder filter, and we say, put it at 1,000 and a Q of 6. Reevaluate the instrument. Say, okay, that's working. Let's say, maybe we use exponential envelope to go from 10,000 to the value of I pitch, which we'll say is some hard-coded value for now. Yeah, it started to sound nice. And then we say, oh, okay, well, maybe we want to make this be, some value that's going to be a key field. And we reevaluate the instrument and the schedule. Okay, and maybe we try this. And two together. Ah. Find our then maybe we say, oh, okay, well, that's a nice kind of gesture. Let's take that here. Let's say we're going to start taking these values here. Maybe between octave 6 and 9, plus some random integer between the values of 0 and 12, and then divide that by 100. And hope that actually works. Okay, good going so far. And then let's say, oh, like that. That's a kind of gesture. And we'll say, oh, okay.
expand las
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's essentially it. I mean, the whole plugin doesn't add that much more to what Luis has put in already. But I think even just that little bit allows us to do quite a bit of working with sound code on the fly to make adjustments and to sort of experiment and develop things. I think for me this has not been I like live coding quite a bit. I don't do it for performance, but I do think it is a part of my kind of compositional process when I'm developing for code-only pieces. So I think that it definitely has added, made the process of experimentation much quicker for me, and allowed me to explore updating and modifying the sound, updating my performance gestures, and other things. Okay, I think we're done.
Okay, thank you. We have some time for questions, and we may ask. We may try the connection. There's the.
A very brief question. Can you eval a score section and send it to read score?
I cannot because I'm using the BDP server port, and it's just orchestra code. Now we can add a kind of tag to allow the BDP server to accept score, or can take another route of trying to run C sound within the same process as Vim,
Right.
or something else like that. We can add another wrapper, and if sending score was really essential. Yeah, I think we could. I'm finding it though, more recently that when I'm coding a C sound piece that's text only, I'm actually not using score anymore. I mean, I still use score notes, but in a kind of separate way, not in this kind of practice.
Right.
We're still trying to contact Google. Apparently, it's not possible. So if you have more questions,
Can we use a mouse with game?
yes, you actually can. There are also menus. Nothing. Steven is showing us plain old terminal Vim, but I opened the graphical version, GVim, which actually it even has, well, I'm not connected to the monitor, but it has menus.
I was joking. Don't worry.
No, but for many people, it's the first trying to teach Vim to someone who uses, I don't know, the notepad. The first thing they want is where are the menus, where I can open a file. You know? How can you open a file if you don't have a menu?
Sorry, when you reevaluate the next one, existing notes are just like they're not running anyway.
I have to remember. I think existing instances keep on playing until they're done.
Last time I heard they keep on playing.
Yeah, I think that's the way we developed it, is that any of the older instances keep going. I don't remember, that's the case for me, yeah.
It just goes on, and for the next round, for the next call, the new instance.
Yeah.
Say, for example, an instrument that defining function tables and its genes. Other instruments are using those function tables. Those extend really.
You're saying if in a table changes, will anyone using it?
Another instrument is using that.
Yeah.
Function table. Yes.
Is it, you're talking about, is the instrument active?
An instrument is using a function table.
Yeah.
That function table is created.
Sorry, previous instrument. I think the same rules apply for even when you're writing a few sounds to run in non-real-time context. You don't want to change that table while another one instrument using it. So there's certain strategies around that you could develop. I think.
If you use FTGen1 inside the instrument definition, you could probably get around that.
Yeah.
You might have to generate an instrument number separately, because that's the other all the parameters are the same. You use the old table. If that's what you want, fine.
It's really only the size.
If you change, yeah, there would be no problem. You could just use FTGen1 inside the instrument.
Does the ICSC2017 have line coding? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for evaluation.
If you change the size, you would get a new table. And the old one will continue working in the old instrument. But it doesn't matter. One will have the old FTGen. Yeah.
We might use it.
Well,
Steven, where can I find your plugin?
It's also on GitHub. I don't know the exact address. It's under my username on GitHub. /Kunstmusik, and then
Here,
oh,
if you go to GitHub and type on the search bar C-Sound in both plugins will appear.
Thank you.
And here finally we have Bluebird, so we have to make it now because he's drinking beer, so keep it completely dry. So before he gets drunk. Hi.
Okay, yeah, can hear well.
yeah. Tell something who's
Can you hear us?
No, I can't hear you. I don't hear anything.
You don't hear me. Yes.
Now we don't hear him.
Yes. I'm going to consider him as they develop this kind of.
Yeah, right.
Do you see me? Can you hear me? No.
We don't hear him, he does not hear us.
Hear nothing. You hear me?
Yes. Yes. Aún será porque también.
Podría ser varios problemas de Sí. Por aquí. Yes. We may, yeah.
If we have, do we have questions?
I do, yes.
Any emails?
Why don't you use
Perhaps I could, no, I cannot use
Yeah.
a Vim plugin for Skype.
Yeah, I had this on for the first minutes, but now it's gone.
We. Can you type in the question?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, what about common music? Can you run it in this environment?
Sorry, how's it going?
Yes, yeah, you can.
Yes. Right. So
You can ask me through text, yes.
What about common music?
If you hear me, then I can reply.
Yes.
You may not be able to.
You mean to integrate music? Yeah. What about common music? Right?
Common music.
Yeah.
What about common music? I guess you're talking about the list,
Yes.
the list library that
Yes.
compares to CSON score.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you use it in your environment? I've never, if you can use common music with Emacs,
I don't know if you.
then I can look at it, but I've never used common music, and
It's pretty thorny.
but if there's an Emacs binding for common music or common list bindings, because common list and Emacs speak very well together, then this could definitely be a tool.
Yeah.
But the point of my major mode in many ways is that it should be very easy to add tools to it. So even though I'm offering a wrap, it's still not. I'm still offering that amount of tool that you as an Emacs user cannot customize your Emacs and use your own functions while composing a score. And I would even urge Emacs users to use the Lisp language, Emacs Lisp, to make algorithmic compositions by just editing text and yeah, common music or just in general any Lisp function. I would. Most music guys use Emacs. Common music guys use mostly Emacs. Yes, okay. So I understand. Okay. So it sounds like something I should implement. And common music is like a set of tools which are really proven to be useful by CSON. And I think this should be a very easy step to do. So yes, thank you for pointing that out. But so far I have not implemented it. I have not implemented any compositional tool for the user. It's only about really so far my major mode about interacting with the CSON and getting the syntax highlighting, the indentation, but no tool for composition.
Okay.
So if you have more questions, maybe. Drink beer with them.
I told you.
Oh,
no. You can do that.
German beer, they're very good.
Okay, I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the talk. I actually do understand. So good talk as well. Thank you, Louis and Steven.
Okay.
Okay, this is my pleasure to present our second keynote speaker, Joachim Heinz, who is a very well-known C-sound contributor, both as writing books and papers and software, and as he is from many years also committed with open source community and projects. He chose a mysterious title that I guess I know what's about, but I won't spoil it for you. So Don Quixote, the Islam, and the Golden Age. And well, welcome and enjoy the talk.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Paulo, and thanks in particular to Luis Huber, our host, not only to invite us here, but to giving me the opportunity to talk about a subject which I come upon again and again. The subject, what are we actually doing when we use and develop open source or free software? Which traditions are we continuing? Después que Don Quijote hubo bien satisfecho su estómago, tomó un puño de bellotas en la mano y, mirándolas atentamente, soltó la voz a semejantes razones. Dichosa edad y siglos dichosas aquellos a quien los antiguos pusieron nombre de dorados, y no porque en ellos el oro, que en esta nuestra edad de hierro tanto se estima, se alcanzase en aquella venturosa sin fatiga alguna, sino porque entonces los que en ella vivían ignoraban estas dos palabras de tuyo y mío. Eran en aquella santa edad todas las cosas comunes. A nadie le era necesario para alcanzar su ordinario sustento tomar otro trabajo que alzar la mano y alcanzarle de las robustas encinas, que liberalmente les estaban convidando con su dulce y sazonado fruto. Las claras fuentes y corrientes ríos, en magnífica abundancia, sabrosas y transparentes aguas les ofrecieron. En las quiebras de las peñas y el huerco de los árboles formaban su república las solicitas y discretas abejas, ofreciendo a cualquiera mano, sin interés alguno, la fértil cosecha de su dulcísimo trabajo. When Don Quixote had quite appeased his appetite, he took up a handful of his acorns, and contemplating them attentively, delivered himself somewhat in this fashion. Happy the age, happy the time, to which the ancients gave the name of golden, not because in that fortunate age the gold so coveted in this our iron one was gained without toil, but because they that lived in it knew not the two words, mine and thine. In that blessed age all things were in common. To win the daily food no labor was required of any save to stretch forth his hand and gather it from the sturdy oaks that stood generously inviting him with their sweet ripe fruit. The clear streams and running brooks yielded their savory limpid waters in noble abundance.
The busy and sagacious bees fixed their republic in the cleft of the rocks and hollows of the trees, offering without usance the plenteous produce of their fragrant toil to every hand. The appetite must be appeased. Then we can talk about a social state of happiness which we seem to remember in myths like the Jewish, Christian, Muslim paradise, or the golden age of Ovid. A state in which no labor was required to win the daily food. Everything is there, we only have to grasp for it. Clear streams and open sources, and look to the bees and their republic, their organization of society, fragrant toil. It is no politician nor an economist speaking here. It is a fool and a swarmer. It is someone with concept of reality that clashes with reality. And although the reality beats him in these clashes, he continues. He continues to see in the most simple things something else than common sense does. Windmills are giants for him. The barber's basin is Mumbrin's helmet for him. And galley slaves are innocent for him. He is missing some of the boundaries which are substantial for functioning. The boundary between fantasy and reality is non-existent to him, even if he loses some teeth when reality hits him. The boundary between the job, in which you must be reasonable and predictable, and the leisure time in which you are allowed to be a dreamer, a player, a fanatic, or even some kind of addict, in which you are invited to read books as journey into another world for a time for your regeneration. This boundary is non-existent for him too. He walks in books as if they were reality, and he walks in the reality as if it were a book. And with him walks Sancho Panza, the representative of the body in all these phantasms, who decided to join Don Quixote not at least because an island was promised to him. You must know, friend Sancho Panza, that it was a practice very much in vogue with the knights errant of old to make their squires governors of the islands or kingdom they won. And I am determined that there shall be no failure on my part in so liberal a custom. On the contrary, I mean to improve upon it. There really was no failure on his part in so liberal a custom. He really improved upon it. We are here. We are here on an island. We are here on an island which, without any doubt, was given to Sancho Panza by Don Quixote. Open source is an island. What are you using? Ableton Live? Maximus Peak? What? CSON? It works. When I once worked on a piece for live electronics with an instrumentalist, she asked me about the software I was using. I told her that it is a program which is not very well known. I told her that it was once created at the MIT and is now developed by a group of people without money. I told her it is about sharing and collaborating. And this works? She asked. Has the golden age come again? Are we perhaps the bees, fulfilling fragrant toil to every hand in their particular republic? Bees are animals which developed around 100 million years ago, together with the flowering plants. They populate the earth in about 20,000 species. The whole population can hardly be estimated. Even one species, the western honeybee, has only in Germany a population of about 50 billion individuals. Humans are animals which separated around 5 million years ago from the other apes. First, they developed in different species. Until around 50,000 years ago, the Homo sapiens expanded. It is the only species left today, populating the Earth in around 8 billion individuals. Humans are characterized by the excessive usage of tools. They use tools to hunt down their prey and kill the competing predators. About 10,000 years ago, they started to systematically shape the Earth. They changed plants and animals according to their needs and lived in quite diverse forms of social organization. They used tools to build houses, to catch animals, to cultivate the earth, or to kill other humans. The computer is a particular tool. We can call it an empty tool which is being filled by programming, by writing on cells of memory. Because of this procedure, in adding devices for input and output, sensors and motors, microphones and loudspeakers, the computer can become every tool possible. By this, it replaces the former devices. With the keyboard as input device, it replaces the typewriter. With a digital to analog converter and a jack for an audio cable, it replaces the gramophone. With a programming language like C sound, it replaces oscillators, resonators, filters, sound generators. It is because of this global ability, I think, which is a substantial property of the computer, that this global questions arise in this field and usage again. The most complex tool of human history is also so empty that simple and fundamental questions come up again. One of these questions is, how do we live together? How do we work together? And how did we come onto this island? In my case, it was like this. I learned C sound in the mid-90s while I studied composition. First, I understood nothing. P4. What the hell is this? But I was, perhaps because of my preceding studies of literature, quite fascinated about this strange language, about these words which pretended to have a meaning. Sound in, and in, Ostzil and Filner. Yes, there was a manual, kind of dictionary, even already called canonical, I think. But how can I understand a description which itself operates with unknown words? What is initialization? What is performance? Or is this opcode to be used in a theater performance? No, all opcodes are described like this. So go to skip image. But I cannot help it. How cool it is to play back a sound from the hard disk by 2 lines of code. And it is for free. How convenient. And so I learned with interruptions and centimeter for centimeter C-sound, and used it again and again, and in the long run, more and more for my compositions. In particular for what formerly has been called tape music, composed pieces with a fixed duration, with and without instruments. I wrote a score by hand on paper, and then transferring the score into the C-sound score was quite straightforward. This is the strength of C-sound, my teachers told us. If you want to make live electronics, you must use Max. Max indeed looked nicer and was faster to learn. But the longer I used C-sound and the better I understood it, the more I liked it. First it was a pain, but then learning it was really fun. And then I subscribed to the mailing list and participated in reading as spectator, and learned a lot from the others, the ones who were writing. And I liked the tone of this mailing list. I had been also on other lists for a shorter time, but here I stayed. I think it has to do with what we read at the first day of every month, thanks to our admin. This is the monthly reminder. The C-sound list welcomes posts from people with all levels of skill, from the newest newbie to the most serious hacker or established composer. The subject and tenor of the posts varies dramatically, depending on what the current concerns are. Newbies are sometimes afraid to post because they read discussions about the incomprehensible deep inner workings, and all they want to know is how to get a sound to come out of their computer, or advice on how to get mobile sounds. Rest assured that your question will be answered quickly and, usually, in a helpful and courteous manner. We've all been there. Please post. But I still was only a spectator. I learned a lot about subjects I did not know before, and I got to know many people because of their emails, how they were reacting, how they were talking, and what they said. Meanwhile, I taught, and in particular, I liked to teach C-sound. And so one day, in a one-to-one lesson with a student, I came upon the creation of impulses and impulse trains. There is the impulse opcode in C-sound, and that was the description in the manual. Ares, impulse, K-amp, K-frec, I offset. Meanwhile, I knew that Ares had nothing to do with the Greek god of war. Moreover, it signifies a result, res, which appears as an audio signal, A. And of course, Km is the amplitude of the impulses, and K-frec determines how frequently the impulses appear. My student and I read the syntax and followed the explanations. And as we wanted to get an impulse train, we changed the K-frec input parameter. If we start with K-frec 1, that's once per second. And if we want to get more impulses per second, we had to increase K-frec 2, K-frec 3, and so on. Claro. But it was wrong. We increased the number called K-frec, but the impulse train became slower rather than faster. With a smaller number, the train became faster. A mistake, an error in the manual. My student laughed and said, "Now I know that I will never use C-sound." I did not laugh and thought, should I tell them? Then these were the big remote men who made the program and wrote the manual. Perhaps I was wrong and they laughed at me, or, not really preferable, they ignored me. No one would answer. It was so hard. I know that there are some who do not know these problems. They may laugh about these anxieties. But I also know, not at least because of my students, that these feelings, the feelings I had before my first post, are typical for many others. Perhaps it was at last kind of a moral instance which made the difference. I thought, I am using C-sound since years without doing anything. Should I not give something back to the project? Or I was not willing to fall under this judgment of Don Quixote. Those are giants. And if thou art afraid, away with thee out of this, and betake thyself to prayer. Me? Prayer? So don't be afraid, or be afraid, but write anyway. I wrote, read, and corrected several times, finally pushed the send button, and the mail was being read. And Andres Cabrera, at this time responsible for the manual, replied and said, true, and I will change the description. Wow, it worked. So was this the entrance to paradise? Did Don Quixote lead me back to the golden age, where the words thine and mine are not known, and all things are in common? Have I arrived in software communism? Let's listen to what Paul Raymond has to say to the question whether open source has something to do with communism.
People that casually look at open source free software and think, well, because you're supposed to share or do it for people's goodwill, doesn't that seem somewhat communist? What's your response? Absolute nonsense. It makes me really angry when people do that.
Perhaps it was lucky that the free software movement originated in the USA. Because of this, we can omit discussing words like communism. We can omit discussions about Marx, who described communism as a state in which the associated producers regulate their interchange with nature in a rational way, so that the true realm of freedom can begin, in which human energy is an end in itself. We can omit discussions about Thomas Morris, in whose Utopia is written, where everything is measured by the value of money, there can never be justice nor happiness. We can omit discussing St. Luke, in whose Acts of the Apostles is written about the first Christians, and all who shared the faith owned everything in common. They sold their goods and possessions and distributed the proceeds among themselves according to what each one needed. They shared their food gladly and generously. What a great trick, not to speak about common property, but speak about freedom. What time it saves. And the more, if you do not only speak about freedom, but take it. But what is freedom? For the framework, or so to say the constitution of our island republic, we know what freedom means. We know the 4 freedoms: to execute the program, to read the source code, to modify the source code, and to distribute the program. Again, this is Klago. And we know that in a mood of good humor, this constitution has been written down in the language of the surrounding world, the world of property, in the form of licenses, in which it endures since decades. But these four freedoms only establish the framework. Instead, I would like to speak about four other freedoms which I experience in our community. The freedom to come and to leave, the freedom to act, the freedom to collaborate, the freedom to share. I would like to describe in which ways I experienced these freedoms, and I will try to explore why they are important for me and how they relate to the surrounding sea. We come and we leave. None of us has signed a contract to be a member of the CSUN community for 1, 2, or 5 years. We simply come. We go for something, and at any time we leave. We work on the code, on documentation, on examples, on front ends. Some stay for a short time, some for a long time, some for a very long time. It is all about a good mixture. If there are too many changes, there is a lack of constancy. If there are too few changes, there is a lack of renewal. There is something like the one entrance, the first email, the first bug report, the first contribution to code or examples. But for most of us, there are movements of coming and leaving on a smaller time scale. There are periods in which we work intensively for and with CSUN, and there are periods in which we do nothing, or in other words, we left for a time. The project is open for it. I cannot find this radical and fundamental freedom in other contexts in which we work together. In particular, our main job, to win the daily food, as Don Quixote calls it. In this job, we sign a contract in which we obligate ourselves to certain duties. Someone can expect this and that from us, and in exchange, we receive a salary for it. We do not have these duties on our island, and because of this absence, another responsibility arises. No one forces me to, but I on my own will decide to take over this or that for a time, starting right now. Manu wanted to see a working and musically interesting example for each upcode, so he did. Many of us wanted to see an up-to-date online textbook, so we started the CSUN Floss manual. Andres, Rory, and Stephen wanted to see modern front ends and different designs, so they created CSUN Qt, Courage, and Blue. It is a personal responsibility for a time. To be there for a time means do something. Freedom in this project is the freedom to do something. Many things are waiting to be done, or we want something new to put into effect. Be it testing, be it to publish some examples, be it writing new opcodes. Freedom here is mainly the freedom to care about a piece of this island. We are a community of doers, and our product is something which again lets us do something, lets us make our music. What is now the relationship of this duocracy to the structures which we usually experience in our societies. I think it is a contrast to the fact that we experience our life mostly as consumers and spectators, with a strange satisfaction of first to be rude and then to complain about it. As consumers, we put the money which we receive by our contract to work on the table again and exchange it for a product which has been made by others. As there was an expectation on us, we now expect this product to work for us. This is its duty. Most of us are also consuming politics. We let others act for us. We give our vote. And then let's look what they, them, whom we gave our votes do. And this habit is not only valid in big politics. It is valid in many little politics. I once was elected as president of a society. I saw my main function in coordinating the activities of the members. But later I realized that most of the members had a very different view on it. They said, "Hey, we elected you, now do. You are our government now." I think it is mainly because of my experience in the CSUN community that I really feel good in communities where anyone can do anything, and feel annoyed in communities in which the members mainly want to observe and consume. Not sure I should blame CSUN for it. Because of the time, I go to this. So, if this all is that nice and satisfying, why then don't more people come to us? Or to other open source projects? And the common property increases and the golden age finally arises for all? Tell me, Don Quixote said, seest thou not yonder knight coming towards us on a doubled grey steed, who has upon his head a helmet of gold? What I see and make out, answered Sancho, is only a man on a grey ass, like my own, who has something that shines on his head. An ass is not a dappled steed. It is not only by nature much smaller and slower, also it is stubborn, so that you can need a lot of time to move it just one step. And a brass basin is not a golden helmet. It can be used for a razor, but it cannot be used to make money from it. And you will not be put in honor if you carry it on your head, but everyone will laugh at you. If we got it right from clever Sancho, the answer to the why question is twofold. It is about time, and it is about money. And both are bigger subjects, because again, they point to how our societies are built. Let us put aside the $1 billion of advertisement which sells apples for peers, and do not even picture our island on their maps. Then I think the main reason for most people not to use and develop open source is the lack of time. You simply have to put a lot of time into it. How could it be different? We are no longer customers, but part of a community. There is none who optimizes a product in a way that it is most easy to use for anyone. Rather than clicking 3 times to install a software, you have to read some different, often outdated descriptions, which you find by browsing the net. Some is not working, at least not immediately, and actually it is always the same. We are not a company. We are the community. If you ask, you will get a reply, usually in a helpful and courteous manner. But this means that we actually always have to enter, join the mailing list, post in a forum. This means we need time to spend with this. And this time we do not have, at least not as a surplus, as abundance, not as free time. I am probably not the only one who spent years to get my audio hardware to run under Linux in a reliable way. And looking at my students who first have to learn what an audio device does, what they should observe when they select one, what are the different connections and options, etc. I really understand that they are happy to use their Mac and happy only to install a driver, and that's it. We all actually want technical devices to work functionally, while stealing as little time as possible. And we all, as parts of the development, we all know how much more could be done, and how much we do not accomplish because we don't have enough time. See, sound development could be a full-time job for more than one person. And the documentation. Ian and me have not updated the FLOSS manual since 2 years, although it would be necessary to cover so many new features. And each of us who does anything in this project knows how much more fragrant toil waits, kindly asking to be done. But why don't we have time for it? What does this tell about our life? Doesn't it mean that an important and substantial question, how do I want to live, is being answered by time pressure? What does it tell us that important decisions happen like this? None of us earns a cent with the work we are doing here. Someone calculated that in the Debian project, some billions of dollars are kept regarding the work of the contributors. And if we calculated what John, Michael, Victor, Stephen, and many others have put as highly qualified work into our project, we would also come to considerable amounts. The good thing is, in this way, these are gifts. We make gifts to each other. No one can expect something. No one will be paid for something. So, if I do anything, I do it because I like to do it, or because I took the responsibility, and I give it to all as a gift. This is a special quality of this community, to know and to appreciate gifts. It would change if we got money for someone to be paid for CSOM development. I'm not against it. Of course, we would have more development, but something would change. The one in charge would look on his working hours. He would have to look not to work too much, even if it is fun. And we would have expectations. And if he were not good at work, we would think how we could fire him. It would not anymore be a gift. But it is said that Buddha lived from gifts, from begging every day, going out with his begging bowl. But we cannot pay our apartments with gifts, nor the bread, nor the computer, and also not the journey to Montevideo to join the CSON conference. So we have other jobs, more or less closely related to CSON, but no job where we are paid for CSON development. And this is the second reason why we are here on an island. Not only that we have little time because we are busy with other things, above all, we have to earn our money out of other activities. This means that from the economical point of view, CSON is a hobby. For none of us it is, but in the frame of our economic order, it is a hobby. And again, what does this fact tell us about the society in which we live? By which mechanisms is a salary generated? Mechanisms with a rationale in their own logic, but what if this rationale leads to the fact that less than 100 humans possess the same as the poorer half, so 4 billion, of all humans? Why aren't these mechanisms which distributes money for socially useful, why aren't there mechanisms which distributes money for socially useful work? What does this fact tell us about our society? Don Quixote raised his eyes and saw coming along the road he was following some dozen men on foot, strung together by the neck, like beads, on a great iron chain, and all this with manacles in their hands. With them there came also 2 men on horseback and 2 on foot. Those on horseback with wheel-lock muskets, those on foot with javelins and swords. And as soon as Sancho saw them, he said, "That is a chain of galley slaves on the way to the galleys by force of the king's orders." "How by force?" asked Don Quixote. "Is it possible that the king uses force against anyone?" Is it possible that the king uses force against anyone? Should we laugh or cry at this question? Laughing, as it obviously is against all reality. Kings, emperors, leaders, presidents were, and still are, as a matter of fact, those who started wars in the past and do it today. Obviously, they are the ones who restrict, exile, or kill those of their people who do not agree. At least they could, because they have the power. Crying, as there is also another meaning of king. For this meaning, a king is the symbol of the society. His body is a distinguished, untouchable body, representing the body of the society as a whole. In this meaning, it is indeed impossible that the king uses force against anyone, unless the society is built on violence. Quite similar, the Tao Te Ching, written 2,500 years ago in China, states, "The best of all rulers is but a shadowy presence to his subjects. Next comes the ruler they love and praise. Next comes the one they fear. Next comes one with whom they take liberties." The best of all rulers does not act, does not use force against anyone. He is the empty, hidden center around which all things rotate. He is there for not to be there. Does the naive sentence from the night of the sad continents perhaps reminds us of something we have forgotten for a long time? Perhaps he gave us our island to remind us of some simple things. That there is work without money which can be fragrant toil. That it is fun to create things together. That true freedom has a lot to do with the absence of property. And Sancho Panza must be there for the sake of our stomachs. It's the end.
Okay.
Questions, comments, any contribution to the excellent keynote by Joachim? Just minor skilled people. That's something. Okay.
I have one thing to say. When I gained the beginnings of confidence at doing computer music, I thought I could make money by creating a product that I could sell. And what I found was that to do this, I would have to purchase licenses for libraries that my code would depend on. And I couldn't really afford it. I would have had to take out a loan and had a rational expectation of truly making some money. And I thought, the hell with this. I really want to make money. The reason I'm writing this code is so that I can make music that I want to hear. If I have to start going into business and buying licenses, and I'm not going to do that. If I do the open source route, I get everything for free, and I can get on with the job. So that was my entrance into this world.
Checking actually it was a comment, but I don't know if you want to say something.
I think it's a great comment, and I'm not about here to actually answer questions because there is no answer. But I'm happy to hear other comments if someone wants. I mean that's just good to share some experiences maybe if someone wants.
Any other? Okay, I will do myself just a little comment. I think that in the ending, in the questions of the first keynote, there was some comments about why to use this sound in academic environments for teaching, composition, and sound, or what would be the need if we have other ways that are not free in the sense that you have to pay for it, but they are easier to handle, and maybe some answers are given in your talk, because it's not about only to do it, but to understand it, and that is learning. That is why I think that you pose it very well. Some things that that are related with C-Sound and specifically with C-Sound and with open source.
Yeah. Yes, I think the answer can only be a personal answer. It's not the same answer for anyone.
Of course.
I must say, you all look now so sad. I mean, is it something which I told you which makes you sad? Perhaps this is my question to you.
Not sad at all. Very good.
No, not true.
Is there another side of the coin? Is there a danger in not placing that type of value in some kind of a product? So whatever you're doing to earn your bread, is this something that you're doing because you want to do it or only because you want to earn money, to earn bread? I guess my real concern is that there's so much music now that's free. Things have changed so much with the web. Do we devalue what we do in some way if we give it away?
I have no answer. This is also, for me, just a contribution, right? Or did I miss something? I cannot.
No, it's a question.
It's a question. Yeah. But how is it related to what I tried to say?
Well, you're talking about the value of community, correct?
Yes.
And the value of contributing.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a comment that wasn't able to create software using C-Sound or anything else to make money, and therefore is doing something else, right, for his money. So my question is this: do we want to completely do things for free, or is there some value in expecting to earn money for creating music? I realize that, first of all, I'm an American, and yes, I'm very commercially oriented, I can't help that. But I do have hippie parents, if that helps. But my question is this: do we, yeah, well, I already asked it. Is there are we diminishing the value of things by just giving it away?
Permit me to respond. First of all, you are legally permitted by the terms of the C-Sound license to create a proprietary product and sell it for a profit. Nobody is standing in the way of doing that. If you do that and you change the code, you have to give us the code. Other than that, you have every right to make a profit off of it.
I would like to answer it too. I had two thoughts in my talk about it. Actually, the first is the question: why don't we earn money for these things? What is the mechanism which let me earn money, for instance, for my teaching job, in my case, or for anyone working for a company, or what is it? But why not for these jobs, which are not only programming? It's a very wide range of works which are useful but not paid. So this is my one question I would like to put. And the other one is very, I mean, this is the end of my talk, when Don Quixote asks in this naive way, the king is actually not able to force anyone. So this is such a radical way to ask the boundaries of our society, the way our society is built. And this I would like personally to go in this direction, not to, I mean, what you mean is okay for me. It's a good question, but I would like not only to answer it in our system, but to look to what is actually this system and how can we perhaps at least think of a different one.
Louis, I don't.
There's like another aspect of the free software community in general, and C-Sound in particular. I like to think, or the way I see it, is not just that we are doing things for free and giving away. I think it's more like a socialized thing. It's like public education. When you think in public education or public health security, you think that you don't have to pay. Children do not have to pay to go to public schools, but that doesn't mean that teachers go for free. They get paid, and many people working in CSUN are somehow associated to academic institutions. And for example, I'm not getting paid for organizing this conference, but I'm not doing this for free. I consider part of my job as a professor at the university. So I have my job, and well, what I'm doing here is acknowledged as part of my work. So does it make sense? And many people who's actually investing time and effort is part of a socialized service. And I think I believe in free software more like public software, in the same sense that we have public libraries or public schools, or you know what I mean. And not just okay. I'm going to make an effort and give it for free to the community. No, I think, okay, this responsibility of...
yes, we get paid for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, I feel the same.
And take it as part, instead of doing just going to teach and that's it, I say, okay, I assume other responsibilities, but it's fine because my income allows me to dedicate time to do these kinds of things. I think we should fight for this aspect. We should fight for investment in public funds for the advancement of free software.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just to be clear, for one, I was playing devil's advocate.
I didn't get the last part. One, I was playing devil's advocate. Although I watched it when you dropped. Two, I was thinking specifically of the fact that I'm old enough to know that people used to make money off of selling albums. And they don't anymore. And it's just kind of diminished the value of music in the public's eye that way. Now you make money touring. Right? But I like what you said a lot, which is that it's not about that so much, it's about public education and public service. That's something I can relate to. But yeah, so of course I was playing devil's advocate. I'm here.
Okay. So very well. So many thanks again, Joachim.
Well, 7:30 is the concert. It's on the main avenue. It's virtual Estudio.